for us, generally it starts with a very simple understanding who the customer is, who the competition is, the footprint of the business, and that kind of stuff. It's very basic business stuff first. So one is it's very insights driven. And for every client, the second question then is, okay, now you know who our customers are and where they are and what they consume, how can you help us scale? And so the first piece is scaling. Like we do focus quite a bit on scale, but the second piece is first party data. Because we work with very, very large advertisers, most of them come with a ton of first party data. And that data can be used in a variety of different ways. Probably the most important use case is suppression. And there's a lot of customers, we know we're already reaching them either through CRM or through linear TV or through other things. So we're really thinking about CTV, about reaching customers that we cannot reach in other vehicles. And then it's also taking that same data set to be able to build lookalikes and to be able to reach customers that really have very low penetration in other kinds of vehicles.
With audience suppression, do you have confidence that it's working, that you're not accidentally reaching audience you're trying to
That's
avoid?
a good question.
Yeah.
So I think there's two plays on that. So the first one is there's the ACR suppression, say, that a Roku enables, where you can suppress people that have seen your linear ads. I have relatively, decent amount of confidence on those kinds of techniques. I said the second piece is around the first party data pieces. So in most of our advertiser situations, we have extended data sets. So it's not just emails, it's address and zips and other things along those lines. And for the OTT providers, and particularly, the Rokus and the Amazons, they have a credit card and a billing address. So the match rates tend to be pretty good in some of those environments if you're using that extended data set. And so, yeah, I have a reasonable amount of confidence that those plays in the playbook are working.
So you spoke about achieving scale in CTV and linear. Could you develop that a little bit? How
Sure.
do you think about scale, both within CTV and across, in concert with linear?
Well, I think the first thing you have to do is just look how time is being spent in CTV, and there are 5 companies that dominate time in CTV, and several of those don't offer advertising as an option. And so I think we have a very simple view of the world. For us, the folks that matter are, we really start with the devices. Amazon, Roku, then a Hulu, then a YouTube. Those 4 players matter the most to us. Now, underneath the Amazons and the Rokus, we can go build deals and so forth to find consumption across those platforms. But the analogy I'd sort of give to you is, having been in this industry for 18 years, in the olden days when I used to want to get unique reach on the internet, I would go target, say, people in email. So if you were a Yahoo Mail user, you were not an AOL Mail user, you were not a Hotmail user, and so forth. If you're watching on Amazon, the chances of you watching on Roku are probably pretty slim. So building unduplicated reach, really important in those environments. Then when you start talking about the YouTubes and the Hulus of the world, it is very device driven. So we want to make sure that we're being very intentional about the plans we're doing. And because we're doing everything from the bottom up, not top down, we can make sure that we're targeting audiences that are, cord cutters, cord nevers. We can also obviously infuse the first party data sets in there and do some interesting plays in the playbook.
So you talk about building bespoke custom plans for your clients. How much of that is just about buying context versus buying audience?
Well, one is context is probably for us less relevant to a large extent. So the first piece is coming back to the basics, is really understanding our clients' customer bases. And kind of our thesis is that marketing is all local. And so when you look at a customer or a client, and any typical client, what you're going to find when you do your BDI or CDI analysis is that some markets are more penetrated than other markets. And as you know, linear TV, for example, falls in a very uneven way. But in the world of connected TV, we can make sure that we have equal application of media in places where it matters most. So understanding the customer footprint, and I have a fantastic example of this. We have one client, it's a dining entertainment destination. There's about 140 locations around the country. They're very large locations. When we first got into the business, probably the first insight was, wow, looking at the CRM file, almost 50 or 60% of the revenue comes from a 5-mile trade zone. Client previously focused on linear TV. And if you just do the math on it, you go, oh my gosh, there's a lot of waste in doing linear TV for something where you know consumption is focused, from a geographical proximity. So, they went from 80% linear TV to 80% connected TV, and then 20% linear. And so what I would sort of say to you is some clients, you can develop plans from the bottom up that are digital and connected TV native, and then you layer on the linear. We have other clients where it's the exact opposite. The math makes a lot more sense to do a national plan and then use digital as a way to get extension from what the linear is doing. So there's not a truism in terms of how you go run the playbooks, but the one thing that connects all of these things is the customer insights. You start there and you end there.
Okay, well, the CTV space is a little fragmented, to put it mildly. A lot of vendors, similar to the early days of programmatic digital. How much do you feel you can rationalize the offerings available from all these tech companies and partners? And what can they do to sort of serve you better?
So we've organized our teams around very specific tasks. So we have one team whose job it is to really kick the tires on new partners. We have one team that works with supply-side partners to curate inventory and to tier that inventory. That's really important. We're tiering qualities of inventory, pricing, supply path, all those kinds of things. And we have another team, their job is to make sure they're working the inventory in the platforms themselves. So it already is extremely complex. And so my job in sort of managing the agency is to try to keep it as simple as we can. And so we have an expression in Camelot, we try to major in the majors. So there may be lots of shiny objects that are interesting, and there are, but it may be a distraction to ultimately the objectives of trying to scale campaigns, trying to drive outcomes, and trying to make sure that we can execute campaigns expeditiously.
Right, so you need people who can help you solve fundamental issues, not provide some bauble that
Yeah, that's
might.
right. Mm-hmm. The triple Lindy in connected TV is not really worth it. I always say the plans we put in place are, if you're a football fan, are like student body left and student body right. It doesn't mean they lack sophistication, but they have to be executable and measurable, and it can't be so challenging. And you can imagine when you have large advertisers, you're leveraging large audiences, so you're connecting audience platforms. You're having to manage the actual consoles of the campaigns. You're having to manage and curate the inventory and the supply partners. And then all of that while managing the campaign to some kinds of KPIs to drive to outcomes. So simplicity is important. It doesn't, but simplicity doesn't imply lack of sophistication. And I want to make sure that's important. A simple approach important, but not necessarily simplistic.